All right, boys. So if you don't know, pretty much for tomorrow, we will be getting an update on what will be the new changes for the anniversary festival for King and DIANE duo. As you already know, pretty much we already have this information where a lot of players was complaining about the character, and you can see that for the devs, they have pretty much said that it has been confirmed that additional damage calculation method for single target skills does not align with the original design intent. And we also identify some unreasonable aspect regarding its overall usability. As a result, certain features of the rules of New Era King and DIANE are scheduled to be adjusted. And again, final test is aiming to apply on Thursday, which again, it will be tomorrow. And again, we just wanted to pretty much discuss what could be some certain changes that they could do to kind of make King and DIANE better. And you guys can always comment down below what changes you would like to see from King and DIANE. Again, the update will be dropping tomorrow, hopefully. So we'll get to see what did they do in terms of buffing her. But first, I want to try to start off with obviously in terms of PvE or PvP first. So we're gonna start with PvE. Again, if you don't know what the DIANE character I'm talking about, it's the new one, this DIANE. Now the one issue I'll probably say in terms of PvE is that this DIANE does not work in the death match. Why is this character does not work in deathmatch? This is a anniversary goddamn festival, bro. She should work everywhere, bro. She should work in real life. I should be able to materialize DIANE right now as we speak. But for some reason, the devs have restricted her from deathmatch. Probably because, again, we have the new deathmatch, right? Because this is a character who petrified. We have the new deathmatch Endura, which for most players, you're probably going to be doing the chaos mode, obviously, or the other modes. And if you don't know, pretty much King is strong against the boss, meaning that King obviously will deal a little bit more damage. So he is pretty much guaranteed to work for the boss. There's also petrification mechanics in there as well, kind of make you more inclined to use this type of King. But like I said before, the other new King in DIANE does have a petrification. And it's obvious to me they probably wanted to try to hopefully have you guys not question it, but they probably wanted to sell you another type of unit in the future that kind of works as similar to King, even better. And a lot of players kind of hate it because, again, you have the new character. You want to use the new character in all activities, bro. So it's obviously they probably wanted to try to sell you guys a new character in the future that probably makes it a lot better. Obviously, they still can do it, but they wanted to restrict it from the festival doing so, make it easier. Because the festival might even try to make it easier. There's a lot of great mechanics that this DIANE have that could have been so helpful for the boss. Like you have the healing, you have the damage reduction, you have the ultimate damage. There's a lot of mechanics that could have been so helpful against the Enduro fights. And I'm assuming they wanted to just try to sell it in the future, but a lot of players probably wasn't going for that, especially because, again, it made absolutely no sense. All right, so this is where we get into the big part. All right, and the big part obviously is going to be the entire kit. Again, I honestly would say in terms of the character itself, this character is very good at going first, especially if you have obviously the newer characters or new collab characters being from the Eminence and Shadow characters all built. So it makes it pretty hard for players who just came into the game to build a kind of a decent team. Again, the other teams you're going to probably rock is going to be Sins with DIANE, but she kind of really wants to be alongside of the Fairies just because the Fairies have a lot better supportive cast than what the Sins got. They just work so well together. And also, the one thing I hate about this character, again, they already mentioned it in the update, or what they want to try to change it, is the single target skill. Now, if you don't know what the single target skill does, pretty much it inflicts colossal amount of damage equal to 500 attack on one enemy, and decrease the enemy ultimate gauge by 1 orb, and if the hero duo has 4 orbs or more. So it's kind of like what the red DIANE has, and it's 2 times pierce rate and inflicts damage equal to 20% of the hero's remaining HP, which is not bad. Now this is where it gets pretty iffy. It's where it applies a petrify on the target for 1 turn when using 1 Wrath of the Fairy King effect to deal damage. So you end up having to waste one of the Fairy King effects to be able to petrify. Now again, the only way to get a Fairy King Wrath is either through your talent system, applying it, or dealing 400,000 damage towards the enemy to be able to get a King's Wrath. And this does not stack, so if you end up hitting 400k, which is gonna probably be like what 3 if they don't die, then you will not be able to gain any other Wrath of the Fairy throughout the match. And remember what I said before, the problem with the Wrath of the Fairy King is that it is able to, you actually can lose it if you take damage. So you can literally take 1 damage and you will lose a Wrath of the Fairy King effect, which is 7% attack related, and damage taken is minus 40%. So you're end up losing the most important part of your passive, which is Wrath of the Fairy King, just from probably the littlest damage possible. Again, that requires you to use, and then you also have to use it up from using your skills. So if you use a skill, you also losing it. So you have a double whammy of losing the Wrath of the Fairy King, which is the most important part of this DIANE's passive. And again, the one issue that is the petrification is this video that I did a couple of days ago, which is Hell with Ludocio Link. Again, you probably already seen it in matches already if you're playing PvP lately, and that is players are actually using Ludocio Link. And the reason being is, so if you don't know what Ludocio Link does, pretty much it evades skills with petrify, freeze, or stun effects for 2 turns. Remember I said evades. So guess what ends up happening? Because of them having a Fairy King's Wrath, that card is automatically considered a petrification card. So guess what ends up happening in this match, which is gonna probably pop up in a minute. This will happen when you use a petrification card when you have the King's Wrath versus a Ludocio Link character. Let me see. So right here, you see it. Oh dang, so look right here. It automatically considered as a dodge or evade, because again, that is how Ludocio Link worked. So because the DIANE had a Fairy King effect and tried to use a single target to try to take away my gauge, they was unable to deal damage. So it kind of puts you in a very tough bind where you pretty much, it makes it very hard for you to compete in PvP, because again, you have to deal with ult rush. But guess what? If they use Ludocio Link, it's going to be hard to take away that gauge, especially if you have that King's Wrath. So you kind of got to play without having that King's Wrath. And that is a very terrible issue when dealing with that single target skill. Now again, could you kind of go for other characters other than the person with the Ludocio Link? Of course, you can always go after the other character with Ludocio Link. But when it comes to the unknown Hell team, Hell has a cleanse. Like if Hell double AoEs, she gets to cleanse that petrified character, which means you get to get hit with the damage afterwards anyway. So yeah, you can petrify the other characters, but remember guys, Hell can cleanse, so it doesn't even matter if you do petrify. And that's why most players, from what I've seen, who's rocking unknown, all they do is run Hell with Ludocio Link, and you pretty much have the same scenario happening over and over again where you're getting blasted. So yeah, that is a big issue. Obviously I don't mind the AoE. I think the AoE is pretty decent, and as you can see with the dev note, they didn't really talk about the AoE at all. I think the one big issue I have is that if you look at the ultimate skill that they have, you can see on one of the spots, it says for the ultimate, it's supposed to increase attack related stats increase by 50%. But you can see right here on the ultimate spot, it says increase the hero's do damage dealt by 50%. Now the one card, so the one that's right is this one, which is the 50% damage dealt. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you, chat. I would have loved if she had a 50% attack related, just because damage dealt doesn't really do much. Again, you can make the case that obviously characters can reduce your attack related stats and stuff like that. I felt it'd be a lot more important, especially when it comes to like PvE activities and stuff like that, because then you'd be able to crit harder, obviously deal damage, because she does have like a pierce skill. You can just hit a lot easier in PvP. But again, I could be wrong. Maybe for some people think increased damage dealt is a lot better. Yeah, she has a lot of issues. You also have the petrified enemy thing. Again, if you're facing off against a mirror match DIANE, it's very hard for a character to stay petrified. So you can have issues with that. Again, same thing with unknown. Like I said before, Hell can cleanse if she just used 2 AoEs. So that kind of avoids the petrify skill. I'm assuming this is the same thing with Gallon. Remember with Gallon with his I think it's his holy relic, where if an enemy is petrified, you're able to deal more damage, right? Or something like that. I think it's damage. I think you deal more damage, or it reduces the damage taken. Now again, that's only on like certain situation where that might be pulled, where you might pull out that situation. But other times, you're most likely not gonna use this part of the passive. But again, it's nice to have, right? It's just a nice thing to have. And then you also have the Wrath of the Fairy King. But yeah, I just think that's all I want to say in terms of PvP and stuff like that. Obviously, I feel like they could also adjust a little bit of these parts of her passive and stuff like that, because again, it could be a little bit of issues sometimes when you have like pretty much the Wrath of the Fairy King giving like the damage taken. I think the Fairy King thing, where the damage taken part, I think that should make it very hard to get rid of. I think they should not allow that literally any damage you take, or even using your skill, should kind of remove it, unless they allow it to be stackable in terms of the damage you can take to the enemy, and be able to rebuild it as easy as possible, or even make the damage taken be for everybody on your team, just so you can have a better chance at not only your DIANE living, but your entire team living. Because you do have moments where obviously you face a super powered unknown team, it can make it very easy for your team to get blasted, or even make it so, I don't know if they're gonna do this, but what could be also really nice is they'd go the Thor route, where it's either you take 400k and you get the Fairy King, or you dish it out as well and you do the 400k and you're able to get the Fairy King. I feel like what they should do is maybe lower the requirement for Wrath of the Earth to be like 200k, so it'll be a lot easier to proc. Make the Wrath of the Fairy King damage taken for everybody, so you can tank a little bit better while going second. And yeah, make it either or. You either take 200k damage and you get the Wrath of the Fairy King, or you are able to deal 200k and you get the Wrath of the Fairy King, something like a Thor route. Just because again, if you go second, obviously you're not gonna get that Wrath of the Fairy King. They're just gonna blast you right then and there. Again, something just to suit go second players, because I know a lot of players do go second with a fairy team, or even a sins team some way somehow, because that's how Box CC works sometimes. But yeah, I think that is pretty good things. Again, I don't have nothing to say about the AoE, the Sprout of Destruction. I've actually hit super hard. Usually this is based on like based on like the maximum damage of the Wrath of the Earth value being on the maximum damage, which could make it a little bit harder for players to accept, just because again, if they shorten out the accumulated damage, it's gonna make it a lot easier for you to get that maximum damage, which means this AoE is gonna probably one-shot you most likely. But yeah, I guess you can also say that you can make it so the, what's the thing called, what's it called, the Wrath of the Earth value, it can stack every phases, because I have had it moments in like Demonic Beasts and stuff like that where obviously it doesn't stack to the next phase, so you kind of gotta use your ultimates or talent to kind of refresh the Wrath of the Fairy King. So they could make it so it stacks every phase or something like that for Demonic Beast. That could be something cool as well. But let me know in the comments what you want to do to see DIANE buffed. Like I said before, from what it seemed like, they really want to fix the damage calculation for the single target skills, because basically it's based on 4 gauge, which means it doesn't really hit as hard. Or you can have moments where you face a little CL and you get shafted. And obviously it says the usability, which I'm assuming that means it's gonna probably try to be usable in all activities, which means you might see it be able to be used in Enduro Fight, which that could be good. So again, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully everything I said in this video does come true. I think the Enduro Fight probably is the most guaranteed thing I said. But again, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and hopefully the buff for DIANE is nice.